This is just one of the worst promotional comics I've ever seen. Oh hi! You caught me reviewing last week's promotional comics. Speaking of metatextual commentary, let's talk about Planetary this week.
Comic tropes. Comic tropes.
Hello! Welcome to Comic Tropes. I'm your host, Chris. What makes a superhero a superhero? As in, what kind of fiction had to come before superheroes that would lay the groundwork for what superheroes would evolve into? And what keeps superheroes as compared to another type of fiction? Well, that was all the premise of the book Planetary, a 27-issue series by writer Warren Ellis and artist John Cassaday. It's one of my personal favorites. It took a long time for it to come out. It ran from 1999 all the way to 2009, but the good news for us is that it is now complete. Combined with the amazing colors by Laura Martin, this masterwork analyzes what it took in 20th century pop culture history to create the idea of the superhero. It also works on several other levels, but before we go any further, let's take a look at the work of guys like Ellis, Cassaday, and Martin so that we can really understand what they've created with Planetary. Born in 1968 in Essex, Warren Ellis held many jobs before getting into writing for comics by 1990. His first stories were short ones for Judge Dredd and Doctor Who before getting regular work at Marvel by 1994. Among other titles, he had a well-regarded run on Excavate. By the mid to late 90s, he began writing for Jim Lee's image imprint Wildstorm, including The Authority. This book was full of realistic art by his collaborator Brian Hitch and full of epic action told across a lot of wide panels and splash pages, which Ellis came to refer to as widescreen action for comics. He also began writing his title Transmetropolitan at DC Comics with artist Derek Robertson, following gonzo journalist Spider Jerusalem investigating corruption in a futuristic city setting. Along the way, Ellis became known for exploring both cultural history and folklore, as well as musings on futuristic technology and humanity's relationship with it. These would all become important elements in his work on Planetary. Just as important to Planetary's ultimate success was relatively new comic artist John Cassaday. Cassaday was self-taught and broke into comics in the mid-90s, doing a few indie books, then a couple issues for DC and Marvel like Teen Titans and X-Men Alpha Flight, before doing a Western for Wildstorm Comics. He didn't want to be pigeonholed as working in just one genre, so when Ellis began talking to Wildstorm about making Planetary, Cassaday was the perfect candidate. His visuals blended hyper-realistic line art and shading with bombastic action visuals. Planetary ended up pushing Cassaday quickly into superstar artist status. One final team member on the book that can be overlooked but contributed greatly was colorist Laura Martin. Each issue of Planetary looked at different genres of heroic fiction, and she varied her work to fit the mood, just as Cassaday did with his pages. One issue could be about the Wild West, another like a Hong Kong action movie, and yet another like a mainstream superhero story. The premise of Planetary is a big part of what makes it so special. It's at once a love letter to and a commentary on superhero comic books. Planetary is actually the name of the organization that investigates these amazing, impossible beings. It's an excuse for the characters to investigate alternate takes on everything from James Bond to Sherlock Holmes, Superman and Green Lantern to Thor and the Fantastic Four. Planetary is comprised of a field team of our three main characters. The drummer, who can manipulate information and electronic waves, essentially speaking to technology and controlling it. Chiquita Wagner, who is super strong and durable, the closest to a traditional superhero. And new recruit Elijah Snow has the power to emit extreme cold or suck the heat out of things. He's older, has no memory past a few years, and is initially our viewpoint character. He's down to earth and has little patience for dumb people or dull situations, but a near childlike amazement at the hidden wonders of the world. Each of the main characters goes through a serious character arc throughout Planetary, which has a definitive story end to it. It begins very episodic as the team investigates mysteries like a Godzilla-like being, but about halfway through, there is a huge twist that I won't give away here, and the book becomes more serialized. It builds on supporting cast members we've met in the past and dives deeper and deeper into the history of various heroes and supernatural characters that have been popular. Ellis's thesis is that superheroes did not emerge fully formed. They evolved out of popular fiction, pulp novels, and science fiction. We see close analogs for characters like the Lone Ranger, the Green Hornet, and the Human Torch, and coincidentally, those characters form a direct family lineage in Planetary. Sort of. Planetary is all about the hidden connections of fiction, and the book itself mirrors that. Characters have secret pasts and connections between one another, like Chiquita Wagner's father being an alternate take on Tarzan named Lord Blackstock. One of the reasons I like Planetary is that it takes all of these iconic characters, creates alternate versions of them, and uses that to essentially comment on the strengths and weaknesses of these previous popular fictional characters. A great example is Lord Blackstock, Chiquita's father. Now, Lord Blackstock is essentially the same as Tarzan. He's got the same fantastic history, but it is also commenting on the fact that Tarzan was an example of the great white hunter or the white savior trope. So while Lord Blackstock has that amazing history, he's also kind of a dick. All of these characters are permutations and derivative examples of characters that we know. At the same time, they're definitively not meant to be exact duplicates. They have flaws to them, and that's what makes it interesting to explore. Take every interpretation with a grain of salt. None of them are trying to get to the core truth of an existing fictional character. Instead, Ellis is examining one aspect of the characters, either a strength or a weakness, maybe how it can make us feel, or how it can work well, and each investigation forms a bit more of a picture of where superheroes came from. In issue 1, we see a team of heroes based on pulp fiction take on superheroes from another dimension. The parallels are clear. The stories of characters like The Shadow and James Bond gave way to Superman and his fellow DC superheroes. In issue 10, we witness 3 origin stories for analogs of Superman, Green Lantern, and Wonder Woman. All 3 are killed off by recurring villains of Planetary, the Four. This time, the metaphor shows us a version of the Fantastic Four killing off versions of DC Comics superheroes in a story set in 1961. Not coincidentally, that was the year Fantastic Four debuted and led to Marvel dominating the comic scene for the next couple of decades. On one level, we the readers are able to enjoy the adventures of the drummer Chiquita and Elijah Snow. But on another deeper level, for those of us that know and study comic book history, and if you're watching my show, there's a good chance you find that interesting, there's another meaning to Planetary. And the characters are archaeologists examining 20th century pop culture that has started to bleed into their universe. They're starting to discover all of that. It's pretty amazing stuff. That said, it wasn't always easy to be a fan of this title. The title took nearly 10 years to give us only 27 issues, plus 3 bonus issues where they meet Wildstorm Team The Authority, DC superheroes, and Batman specifically. That meant that fans had to be very patient, and it could sometimes be hard to remember where things left off. Ellis's pitch was for 24 issues on a bi-monthly schedule, which should have taken 4 years. But a combination of Cassaday's perfectionism and Ellis's poor health from 2001 to 2003 meant several serious delays. Fortunately, the title did reach its intended conclusion almost 10 years ago now, and it's pretty easy to pick up trade paperback or omnibus collections and read it through as one story. The book began in 1999, and even though it extended over 10 years to tell just 27 issues of story, it's very concerned with the idea of the end of a century and what that means for society. A recurring idea in Planetary is the concept of century babies, people born right on January 1st, 1900, who are born with a special ability as well as prolonged life, able to live 100 years in their prime. We eventually learn Elijah is one of these people, as are many of the supporting characters the team comes across. That collection of stories looking at pop culture fiction throughout the 20th century is one of the levels Planetary can be appreciated on. Writer and filmmaker Joss Whedon may have put it best in his intro to the second collection of Planetary, where he wrote, "Warren Ellis draws inspiration from so many cultural wellsprings that his work truly does become a sort of history of the 20th century as it exists in popular fiction. But this is no mere pastiche. Ellis both subverts and elevates the elements he takes, making them fit perfectly his own epic vision." The second level Planetary can be appreciated on is its fascinating look at theoretical science. To a large degree, the recurring villains of Planetary, the Four, are representative of scientists acting without conscience. They're counterparts for the Fantastic Four, but morally bankrupt. The two most important members are William Leather and Randall Dowling. Leather is the son of Miriam, who was married to the Planetary Stories counterpart of the Green Hornet called the Spider. But he was fathered by one of the Spider's henchmen when Miriam was unfaithful. Dowling later manipulates William into believing he was denied his birthright of being born to the Spider. Dowling is the leader of the team and a genius, but he experiments on and manipulates others in his quest for knowledge. The Four are eventually revealed to have gone on a scientific journey into the multiverse, where they gained vast abilities. The multiverse is also described in the comics as a theoretical snowflake existing in 196,833 dimensional space. Modern algebra uses that specific number to refer to something that they call the monster group, and I tried to do research and find a way to condense it and explain it to all of you, but it went right over my head. Sorry about that. Suffice it to say, Warren Ellis really enjoys injecting real physics and mathematics into his comic books. The only thing I did learn is that one of the mathematicians who helped simplify that number was a guy by the name of Jacques Tits. So there's that. Beyond the book exploring both history and science, it operates perfectly as a superhero book in and of itself. A lot of the thanks here should be laid at the feet of artist John Cassaday. His work is realistic but never stiff. Instead, he knows just how to pace a scene, with many pages operating in a standard 9-panel grid. He places the camera in just the right spot, like this scene of Elijah Snow taking out Dracula. The camera is low to the ground, so the action is swinging right past us. And the focal point is Dracula shattering as Elijah's boot connects with the Dark Lord's testicles. Sometimes Cassaday is called on to represent epic action, and he'll switch to long panels that mimic the scope of a movie screen. Other times he'll vary up the tools he uses, like in issue 5, when he uses charcoal and ink to duplicate the look of old pulp magazine illustrations. Cassaday would study up on cultural art for issue 15's story focusing on Aborigines. In issue 7, the title riffed on the Vertigo comics of the 90s, so Cassaday leaned into Photoshop techniques. And backing him up every step of the way was Laura Martin's colors. They shine through each time, adding the appropriate tone, and in cases where Planetary or the Four examine the multiverse, she's given extra room to show off. Planetary draws you in with its episodic stories, which give the characters a lot of room to breathe, and you start to like and care about them and relate to them. And then the book goes through a twist eventually, which I won't get into, I won't spoil it here, but it makes the story start to become more serialized as it speeds towards its conclusion. It works really well because it's invited you into these characters' lives, and you're with them every step of the way. I think Planetary's premise can best be summed up with this quote from the end of issue 1 by characters Elijah Snow and Jaquita Wagner. "It's a strange world. Let's keep it that way." All right, that was a lot of fun for me to look at. I think that Planetary is a fantastic comic book that also functions as a commentary on comic books. So your mileage may vary, but if you like this show, you very well might love Planetary. If you're interested, I definitely recommend the Omnibus. It collects all the issues. I think it's a really good value, and one of the great benefits is that you can see John Cassaday's evolution as an artist, because it takes place over 10 years. He's great right from the beginning, but it is still fun to see what he goes through and where he ends up compared to where he started. All right, so I recommend Planetary. Fun episode. Let's take a look at what fan art came in this week. Tyler Garcia sends in this fun art showing me hanging out with the Ninja Turtles, who are experiencing what Tyler calls a pizza hangover. I'd love to have a pizza hangover with the Turtles. Thanks, Tyler. Michael Augello sends in this doodle that he says he did at work. The character is proudly wearing a t-shirt with one of my catchphrases, so this is a good time to let you know that I have a link to Comic Tropes t-shirts above the description on most of my videos. Michael Clark sends in this nice piece of me doing a review. I like your style, Michael. His Instagram is listed there if you want to see more. And finally, from South Africa comes this comic strip by BB Comics. This comic strip shows me getting to meet the publisher of upcoming comics from South Africa, including their new characters, Sergeant South Africa and the Lynx. Best of luck to you and your team. 4 pieces of fan art. That means I've got 4 numbers here. I'm going to drop them in this bag, see who wins. If you would like to have your artwork featured on the show, as long as it has something to do with this show, just send it to this address, comictropes@gmail.com. I'll feature it. If you want to include a link or social media name, send that in the email as well. All right, number 2. I believe that was Michael Augello. Yes? Michael, you have won. Let's take a quick look at what you won. I give a Gachapon prize to one winner every week. This is the Gachapon machine provided by Lunar Shines. All right, let's see what we got here. Oh, total mystery, completely pink. Dare I open it? No, I'll let that be a surprise for you, Michael. Reply to me with a mailing address. I'll ship this out your way. Thank you so much. Hey, everybody, thank you so much for watching. I've been having a lot of fun. I enjoyed doing this look at Planetary. It's not quite a modern comic since it's about 10 years old right now, but it's closer to some of the stuff that I've been looking at lately. And I've realized that there are a lot of modern comics that I'm excited to talk about. I'm always trying to vary it up, so you can always expect me to look at creators that have been around a long time. You can expect me to look at indie comics, foreign comics, but one of the ones that I want to take a look at pretty soon is Black Hammer by Jeff Lemire. I definitely want to cover that. I've got some stuff about X-Men and stuff there that I want to talk about soon, so we'll see. Expect a wide variety of topics. I'm also very eager to get into both Filipino artists and Argentinian comics. Those are 2 foreign comics that I'd really love to do an episode about, but as you can see, I always have tons of ideas. Thank you so much for watching. Hey, until next episode, I know, keep reading comics.